After years of silence, Ben Affleck finally spoke, and what he revealed caught everyone off guard. His calm tone during the interview masked something deeper, something far more painful than the headlines ever suggested. This wasn't a story about betrayal, scandal, or fame. It was about honesty, the kind that hurts to say out loud. When Ben opened up about the end of his marriage, he didn't point fingers or look for sympathy. Instead, he offered something rare in Hollywood: vulnerability. He described the quiet truth behind a love story that had already lived 2 full lifetimes. And in those few sentences, he shattered the illusion that time and second chances could fix everything. Because what he revealed wasn't about who changed or who failed, it was about realizing that sometimes love itself isn't enough. Subscribe now if you want more real Hollywood stories told without the noise. Just truth, emotion, and the moments everyone missed. The illusion of a second chance. When Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez reunited in 2021, the world couldn't look away. After nearly 2 decades apart, the couple that once defined early 2000s romance was back. Older, wiser, and seemingly ready to rewrite their story. Fans called it Bennifer 2.0, the sequel no one expected but everyone wanted. Their reunion wasn't just about love, it was about redemption. 2 people who had been through marriages, divorces, children, and heartbreaks were now standing face to face again. As if time had folded in on itself, Hollywood turned their comeback into a fairy tale. Every photo, every red carpet moment, every affectionate glance was celebrated as proof that true love always finds its way home. And for a while, it really did look like that. They smiled brighter, appeared more grounded, and seemed determined to protect what had once been destroyed by fame. Interviews, appearances, even the smallest gestures hinted that this time they'd learned their lesson. But beneath the glimmer of second chances, something quietly repeated itself. The same cameras, the same public fascination, the same pressure to perform their love. It all came rushing back. What looked like a new beginning was really a familiar loop. The fairy tale had the same characters and the same script, only older faces playing the same roles. Ben and Jennifer weren't rewriting their story. They were reliving it, and while their hearts remembered how much they'd loved each other, their scars remembered why it hadn't worked the first time. Love brought them together again. But history was waiting just around the corner. Why the first breakup should have been the warning. In the early 2000s, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez were more than just a couple. They were the definition of Hollywood's golden age of celebrity. Everywhere they went, flashbulbs followed. From movie premieres to casual coffee runs, their relationship became public property. The world fell in love with Bennifer. They were young, glamorous, and seemed unstoppable. But what started as a fairy tale quickly turned into a storm neither of them could control. The paparazzi frenzy was unlike anything Hollywood had seen before. Crowds gathered outside hotels just to catch a glimpse. Tabloids ran daily updates on their relationship. And while Jennifer handled the fame with grace, treating it as part of her world, Ben began to crumble under the constant glare. He was a private man trapped in a public circus. Every gesture, every glance was dissected, turning love into performance. Their 2003 wedding was supposed to be a defining moment, a celebration of love conquering all. Instead, it became the beginning of the end. The pressure was unbearable. The media turned what should have been sacred into a spectacle, and just days before the ceremony, they called it off. The official reason was media interference, but the truth ran deeper. They simply couldn't survive the spotlight together. That breakup should have been their greatest teacher. It exposed the painful truth that love alone can't thrive when 2 people live in different worlds. One built on privacy, the other on publicity. Jennifer's strength was sharing her life. Ben's peace came from protecting his. When they found each other again nearly 2 decades later, they believed time had changed them. But the lesson they never learned was waiting in the shadows, ready to repeat itself all over again. The marriage that looked perfect, until it wasn't. When Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez finally said "I do" in July 2022, it felt like the perfect Hollywood ending. Their Vegas ceremony was intimate and spontaneous. Two people who had waited 20 years to finish a story they never stopped believing in. Just a month later, they held a lavish celebration at Ben's Georgia estate, surrounded by family, friends, and cameras eager to capture every glowing moment. It was romantic, cinematic, and symbolic. A love story reborn under the world's spotlight. The media couldn't get enough. Headlines called them proof that true love never dies. Every photo, from their honeymoon smiles to red carpet appearances, painted the picture of a couple completely in sync. Interviews showed two people who claimed to have grown, learned, and finally figured out how to balance fame with intimacy. For a while, it looked like they had truly cracked the code. But behind those perfect smiles, tension was quietly taking shape. Friends noticed small moments, Ben's distant expressions, Jennifer's insistence on sharing their romance publicly, his discomfort at constant attention. He tried to blend into her world, but it wasn't a natural fit. What looked like happiness was, in reality, effort. Two people trying to convince themselves that this time would be different. They sold the world a love that looked unbreakable, but love built under that much pressure doesn't last without cracks. And as the months passed, those cracks deepened. Invisible to fans, but painfully clear to them. The world saw a fairy tale come back. What Ben and Jennifer lived, though, was a quiet unraveling that had already begun long before the cameras stopped flashing. Quick pause. Stick around till the end, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. The documentary that exposed everything. When the Greatest Love Story Never Told premiered in February 2024, it was meant to be Jennifer Lopez's ultimate love letter to her marriage. A musical tribute to the man she believed completed her story. But as the world watched, something very different unfolded. What was meant to prove their happiness instead exposed the distance between them. Throughout the film, viewers saw Ben's discomfort. His smiles were tight, his silence heavy, his eyes distant during moments that were supposed to feel romantic. In one scene, Jennifer proudly announced she was turning their love into art. And Ben's reaction said it all. Supportive words paired with a look that revealed quiet resistance. The irony was powerful. A documentary created to celebrate their bond ended up recording its unraveling. For Jennifer, it was art. For Ben, it was exposure. Business Insider confirmed this perspective, reporting that the documentary unintentionally revealed the cracks in their marriage and highlighted Affleck's visible unease during filming. That's when Ben realized nothing had changed. Ben's interview, the words between the lines. When Ben Affleck finally opened up in his March 2025 GQ interview, the world expected gossip and scandal. Instead, he offered quiet honesty. His tone was calm, his words careful, but what lingered between the lines was regret. He called the breakup quotidian, meaning ordinary, a word so simple it almost sounded dismissive. But behind that simplicity was pain. Labeling something ordinary can sometimes be a way to soften what hurts too deeply to describe. Then came the moment that summed it all up. You don't marry a ship captain, and then say you don't like the water. It wasn't an insult, it was self-awareness. Ben admitted, in his own way, that he'd fallen in love with someone he knew lived publicly, but convinced himself he could handle it. Fox News later confirmed Ben's exact phrasing, quoting him as saying there was no scandal, no soap opera, no intrigue, just two people who couldn't make it work. Those words weren't just damage control. They were closure. A man owning his choices without blaming the woman he loved. The real issue, incompatibility, not infidelity. Despite endless speculation online, Ben Affleck's marriage didn't end because of betrayal or scandal. There were no secret affairs or explosive arguments. What destroyed their relationship was something far quieter and far harder to fix. It was incompatibility in its purest form. Ben and Jennifer were two people deeply in love, but built for entirely different worlds. Ben's nature has always been introspective. He's private, deliberate, someone who prefers silence over spectacle. His peace comes from boundaries, the kind that protect his mind and his emotions from the chaos of fame. Jennifer, on the other hand, thrives in expression. She's artistic, open, and endlessly driven to share her story with the world. Her creativity doesn't stop at her music or movies. It extends into how she lives her life, in full view of her audience. This contrast, once magnetic, became impossible to sustain. Ben admired her openness, but couldn't live inside it. Jennifer adored his depth, but struggled with his need for distance. It wasn't that one was right and the other wrong. They were simply wired differently. What she saw as love through connection, he saw as love through privacy. Their marriage became a tug-of-war between those two definitions. To her, sharing their story meant celebrating it. To him, sharing meant losing it. Over time, even the smallest moments, an interview, a selfie, a behind-the-scenes post, became reminders of how differently they viewed love itself. They weren't enemies. They were opposites. And no matter how strong the affection, two people living opposite lives can't hold the same dream together forever. The breaking point. When love turned into pressure. By February 2024, when The Greatest Love Story Never Told premiered, the truth could no longer hide behind smiles. What the world saw as art, Ben saw as exposure. As the documentary aired, social media lit up with one observation repeated again and again. Ben looks miserable. Viewers noticed the discomfort he'd tried so hard to conceal. His forced smiles, long silences, and uneasy gestures became the focus of thousands of viral clips. Jennifer's career demanded that her story stay visible. Publicity wasn't just part of her job, it was her identity. Every new project required openness, vulnerability, and fan connection. But for Ben, that openness felt like a spotlight he couldn't escape. He wanted privacy, quiet mornings, unrecorded moments, love that didn't have an audience. Their dreams no longer aligned. Her art needed attention. His heart needed retreat. He tried to compromise, attending premieres, interviews, and events he didn't enjoy, standing beside her because that's what love demanded. But every appearance cost him a little more of himself. He wasn't angry at her. He was exhausted. Supporting her publicly while retreating privately created a version of Ben that didn't feel real anymore. That exhaustion slowly became emotional distance. Conversations turned cautious, affection turned polite, and moments that once felt joyful became heavy with pressure. For Jennifer, he seemed detached. For Ben, she seemed relentless. Neither saw that both were breaking in different ways. By the time the documentary ended its run, so had their emotional connection. The man who once promised forever was still there, just too tired to keep pretending he could live in her spotlight any longer. Quick reminder: keep watching, and make sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. What Ben admitted, and what he didn't. In his 2025 GQ interview, Ben Affleck was honest, but not completely. His words were carefully chosen, his tone thoughtful, his pauses deliberate. It was the kind of interview where what wasn't said mattered far more than what was. He admitted the marriage failed, but avoided discussing why. He called the breakup ordinary, even though everyone knew it was anything but. That selective vulnerability revealed more than a full confession ever could. Ben's silence wasn't new. It was part of a lifelong pattern. In a resurfaced 1999 Playboy interview, he once described how he handled conflict in relationships. "When I become unhappy," he said, "I stay quiet and develop what I call passive-aggressive rage. Those words, written decades before Jennifer re-entered his life, now read like foreshadowing. Ben doesn't explode, he implodes. He stays too long, suppresses too much, and hopes things will change until the weight becomes unbearable. That's exactly what happened in his marriage. Instead of leaving when he first felt unhappy, he tried to adapt. He walked red carpets he didn't want to be on, smiled through interviews that made him uneasy, and convinced himself this time would be different. But quietly, resentment grew. He didn't resent Jennifer. He resented the version of himself he became around her. When he finally spoke, his restraint wasn't denial. It was exhaustion. Ben Affleck has always preferred to protect others rather than expose himself. But this time, his silence spoke louder than any headline could. He didn't need to explain why his marriage collapsed. The way he avoided the details told the world everything. His silence told the whole story. Jennifer's side, acceptance through art. For Jennifer Lopez, art has always been more than a career. It's her way of surviving. When life breaks her heart, she turns it into rhythm, melody, and performance. After the divorce, she didn't retreat or hide. Instead, she did what she's always done, transformed pain into expression. Her film, The Greatest Love Story Never Told, and her accompanying album became a mirror of everything she felt but couldn't say aloud. This is the paradox that defined their relationship. What kept Jennifer strong was the very thing that pushed Ben away. She needed to process emotions by sharing them with the world, by giving her experiences shape and meaning through art. For her, healing came from visibility. For Ben, peace came from privacy. What united them once, passion and vulnerability, eventually drew them apart. Jennifer's strength is openness. She doesn't hide her pain. She performs it, owns it, and rebuilds herself through it. It's what made her a global icon, and what made her incompatible with a man who needed silence to heal. While Ben retreated into quiet reflection, Jennifer found comfort in creation. In the end, they weren't opposites attracting. They were reflections that couldn't exist in the same frame. She heals publicly. He hides privately. They were never meant to speak the same language of love. And that unspoken truth became the line that even their deepest affection couldn't cross. Aftermath. Lessons they'll never share. Aloud by April 2024, the separation had quietly begun. Jennifer stayed focused on her work, while Ben moved into his private Los Angeles residence. They avoided public statements, and when the divorce was finalized in January 2025, both spoke with grace. There were no scandals, no bitterness, just acceptance. Page 6 confirmed this tone, quoting Ben as saying he has nothing but respect for Jennifer Lopez following their divorce, proving that, even in heartbreak, he chose dignity over drama. Still, some insiders claimed Ben reached out again months later, not for reconciliation, but for closure. Whether it was healing or history repeating itself, no one can say. But one truth remains: some love stories don't need new chapters, only peace in the ending. The truth beneath the headlines. In the end, Ben Affleck didn't lose Jennifer Lopez. He lost the illusion that he could change himself to keep her. Their story wasn't ruined by lies or betrayal, but by truth. The truth that love alone can't erase who we are at our core. She needed light. He needed quiet. And no matter how deep the affection, those worlds were never meant to merge. Sometimes love doesn't end in anger. It ends in realization. That's what Ben finally understood. You can love someone completely and still not belong in their world. Subscribe now for more real Hollywood stories, where love, fame, and truth collide behind the headlines.